The sky above Pine Ridge was unusually clear that Tuesday evening when everything changed. Jake Rodriguez had been a park ranger for 8 years, and he thought he'd seen everything these mountains could throw at him. Bears, lost hikers, the occasional illegal campfire, nothing too crazy. But what he witnessed that night would turn his world upside down. Jake was finishing his evening patrol when a bright streak of light tore across the sky. At first, he thought it was just a meteor. The mountains got plenty of those, and tourists love taking pictures of them. But this one was different. Instead of burning up and disappearing, it seemed to slow down, almost like it was being controlled. The light crashed somewhere deep in the forest, maybe 3 miles from the main trail. Jake grabbed his radio and called it in, but the static was so bad he couldn't get through to anyone. His truck's GPS started acting weird too, spinning in circles like it couldn't figure out where north was. Something about that crash was messing with all the electronic equipment. Jake had two choices. He could drive back to town and report it in the morning, or he could check it out himself. His curiosity won. He'd always been the type to help first and ask questions later. Plus, what if someone was hurt? What if it was a small plane that had gone down? The hike through the forest was tougher than usual. His flashlight kept flickering, and his compass was spinning like a toy. The trees seemed different too, like they were leaning away from something. Even the night sounds were wrong. No owls, no rustling leaves, just an eerie silence that made his skin crawl. When Jake finally reached the crash site, his jaw dropped. There was a crater about 20 feet wide, with strange scorch marks that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. The ground around it looked like glass, all smooth and reflective. But the weirdest part was the smell, like flowers and electricity, mixed together. And there, sitting in the middle of it all, was a girl. She looked maybe 25, with long dark hair that seemed to catch light in a way that didn't make sense. Her clothes were torn and dirty, but they were made of some material Jake had never seen before. It looked like fabric, but it shifted colors slightly when she moved, like oil on water. The girl was conscious, but clearly hurt. She had cuts on her arms and face. But here's the thing that made Jake's brain hurt. The cuts seemed to be healing as he watched. Not fast enough to see it happen, but faster than any normal person should heal. "Hey there," Jake called out softly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay? I'm Jake. I'm a park ranger." The girl's head snapped up, and Jake caught sight of her eyes. They were the most beautiful eyes he'd ever seen, but they definitely weren't normal. They seemed to have tiny flecks of silver in them that actually glowed in the dark. She said something in a language Jake had never heard before. It sounded musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Then she seemed to catch herself and switched to English. "Stay back," she said. But her voice was shaky. I don't want to hurt you." Jake raised his hands to show he wasn't a threat. "I'm not going to hurt you either. Looks like you've been in some kind of accident. Are you from around here?" The girl tried to stand but stumbled. Without thinking, Jake moved forward to help her, but she flinched away from his touch like she'd been burned. "I can manage," she said, but her voice was getting weaker. I need to find." She looked around desperately, like she was searching for something. Jake followed her gaze and noticed something else weird. There were pieces of metal scattered around the crater, but they weren't like any metal he'd ever seen. They were smooth and dark, and they seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. "What's your name?" Jake asked gently. "Where did you come from?" The girl looked at him for a long moment, like she was trying to decide whether to trust him. Finally, she said, "Luna. My name is Luna. Okay, Luna, I'm going to help you get out of here. But I need you to let me. You're hurt in this place." Jake looked around at the strange crater and the glowing metal pieces. "This place doesn't feel safe." Luna seemed to be fighting some kind of internal battle. She kept looking at the sky like she expected something to come down and get her. Her whole body was tense, ready to run at any second. "They might still be looking for me," she whispered, more to herself than to Jake. "Who's looking for you?" Jake asked, but Luna just shook her head. "You wouldn't understand." You couldn't understand. Jake noticed that when Luna got emotional. Her appearance seemed to flicker slightly, like a TV with bad reception, for just a second. Her skin looked different, paler, almost luminescent, and her hair seemed to move on its own, like she was underwater. "Look," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his mind was racing. "I don't know what happened here, and I don't know who you're running from, but I do know that you're hurt, and you need help. My truck is about a mile away. Let me at least get you somewhere safe." Luna stared at him for what felt like forever. Jake could see the conflict in her strange, beautiful eyes. She wanted to trust him, but something was holding her back, something that had hurt her before. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she finally admitted, and her voice was so small and lost that it broke Jake's heart. "Then come with me," Jake said. "I've got a cabin about 10 minutes from here. It's quiet, it's safe, and nobody will bother you there." Luna nodded slowly, but Jake could see that agreeing to accept help was one of the hardest things she'd ever done. As they walked away from the crash site, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. Behind them, the strange metal pieces in the crater began to glow brighter, like they were trying to communicate with something far away in the star-filled sky. Jake's cabin was nothing fancy, but it was home. Wood walls, a stone fireplace, and windows that looked out over the valley. Luna sat on his couch, wrapped in one of his old blankets, looking like she might bolt at any second. He made her some tea, but she just held the cup without drinking it, like she wasn't sure what to do with it. "The hospital isn't far," Jake said carefully. "Dr. Mitchell is good people. She's been taking care of folks in this town for 20 years. Luna's grip tightened on the cup. "No hospitals, no doctors. But you're hurt. Those cuts on your arms, they're already healing." Luna said quickly. Too quickly. Jake looked at her arms again. She was right. The cuts that had been bleeding an hour ago were now just thin red lines. In another hour, they'd probably be gone completely. That wasn't normal. That wasn't human. "Luna," Jake said slowly, "what exactly happened to you out there?" She set down the teacup and pulled the blanket tight around herself. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me for a moment." Jake thought she might actually open up, but then she shook her head. "I need to leave. I've already stayed too long. Leave. Where are you going to go? You don't have a car. You don't have money. And you're in the middle of nowhere." Luna stood up, and Jake noticed something odd. She moved with perfect balance, like a dancer or a fighter. But there was something else, something that made his brain itch. When she walked, her feet barely seemed to touch the ground. "I'll figure it out," she said. "I always do." Jake wanted to argue, but something about her tone told him to back off. Instead, he made up the guest room and tried to pretend everything was normal. But normal had left the building the moment that strange light fell from the sky. The next morning, Jake woke up to find Luna sitting by the window, staring out at the forest. She hadn't slept. He could tell by the way she held herself, like she was ready to run at any second. "I made breakfast," he said. "I don't eat much," Luna replied without turning around. Jake set a plate on the table anyway, eggs, toast, nothing complicated. But when Luna finally came to the table, she looked at the food like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You've never had eggs before, have you?" Jake asked. Luna's cheeks turned pink. "I've had similar things." She took a small bite, and Jake watched her face carefully. She looked surprised, then pleased. "It's good," she said, like she hadn't expected it to be. "Where are you from, Luna? And don't say around here because I know everyone in 100-mile radius." Luna put down her fork. "Somewhere far away. Very far away." "How far?" She looked out the window again, and Jake could swear he saw her eyes reflect the sunlight like a cat's. "Farther than you can imagine." After breakfast, Jake had to go into town for supplies. He didn't want to leave Luna alone, but she insisted. She'd be fine. When he got back 3 hours later, she was gone. Jake found her in the town square. Looking completely lost, she was standing in the middle of the crowd, turning in slow circles like she couldn't figure out which way to go. People were starting to stare. "Luna," Jake called out, jogging over to her. "What are you doing here?" I tried to leave, she said, and her voice was shaking. I walked for hours. But nothing looks familiar. The roads don't make sense. The signs are all wrong. Jake looked around and realized what she meant. To him, everything looked normal. But to someone who wasn't from Earth, well, nothing would make sense. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you back to the cabin. That's when Luna exploded. No, she shouted, loud enough that half the town square turned to look. I don't need your help. I don't need anyone's help. Her voice carried in a way that shouldn't have been possible. Jake felt it in his chest, like the sound waves were stronger than they should be. A few car alarms went off, and dogs started barking all over town. Luna, calm down. I've been taking care of myself for years, she continued, and now Jake could see that her eyes were definitely glowing. I've survived things you can't even imagine. I've crossed space and time and dimensions. And I did it all by myself. The air around Luna seemed to shimmer like heat. Waves rising from hot pavement. Jake blinked, and for just a second, she looked different. Taller, paler, with silver streaks in her hair that definitely hadn't been there before. I don't need protection, Luna shouted, and her voice had harmonics now, like she was singing and speaking at the same time. I don't need someone to take care of me. I don't need. She stopped suddenly, looking around at all the staring faces. The shimmer around her faded, and she was back to looking like a normal human girl. But Jake had seen what he'd seen. I don't need anyone, she finished quietly. Jake stepped closer, ignoring the whispers from the crowd. Okay, he said, you don't need anyone. I hear you. But maybe you want someone. Luna looked at him with those impossible eyes, and Jake saw something break inside her. All that fierce independence, all that determination to stand alone, cracked like glass. I don't know how, she whispered. How to what? How to want someone. How to let someone help. How to stay in one place and trust that it's safe. Jake felt his heart break a little. Whatever had happened to Luna, wherever she'd come from, she'd been hurt, badly. And she learned that the only way to survive was to never depend on anyone else. You don't have to figure it all out today, Jake said. Just don't run away again, okay? Not yet. Luna nodded, but Jake could see the war going on behind her eyes. Every instinct she had was telling her to run, to hide, to protect herself the only way she knew how. But something else was telling her to stay. As they walked back to the cabin, Jake noticed that Luna kept looking over her shoulder at the sky, like she was waiting for something to come down and find her. He was starting to think that maybe something would. 3 days had passed since Luna's public outburst, and Jake was learning that living with someone from another world was more complicated than he'd imagined. She couldn't figure out how to work the TV remote. She'd never seen a toaster before, and she kept trying to drink orange juice with a fork. But she was stubborn about doing everything herself. I can handle it became her favorite phrase. She said it when she couldn't open a jar of pickles. She said it when she got lost trying to find the bathroom. She even said it when she accidentally set off the smoke alarm trying to make toast. Jake wanted to help, but every time he stepped forward, Luna would give him that look. The same look she'd given him in the town square. The look that said she'd rather struggle alone than admit she needed anyone. On Thursday morning, Luna announced she was going to town by herself. I need to learn how your world works, she said, standing by the door with her chin raised in that defiant way of hers. I can't stay hidden in this cabin forever. Jake looked up from his coffee. Are you sure? The town can be a bit overwhelming if you're not used to it. I'm not a child, Jake. I can handle a small human settlement. The way she said human settlement made Jake's skin crawl, but he didn't push it. Luna had been getting more comfortable around him, and he didn't want to mess that up by being overprotective. Okay, he said, but take my phone, and if you need anything, I won't need anything. Luna said firmly, I'll be back before dark. Jake watched her walk down the dirt road toward town, and he had a bad feeling in his stomach. But Luna had made her choice, and he had to respect it. What Jake didn't know was that Luna was already in trouble before she even reached the town limits. The black SUVs had been parked on the highway since dawn, and the men inside them had been asking questions. They wore dark suits and had badges. That looked official, but something about them made the locals nervous. They'd been showing people photos and asking about strange lights in the sky. Luna felt them before she saw them. It was like a cold weight in her chest. The same feeling she'd had on 3 different planets when the hunters had gotten too close. She'd been running from these people for so long that she could sense them from miles away. But she was tired of running. She told Jake she could handle herself, and she meant it. She was going to walk through that town with her head held high, buy whatever humans bought at their little stores, and prove that she didn't need anyone's protection. The plan lasted exactly 12 minutes. Luna made it to the grocery store without incident. She even managed to buy a bottle of water and a bag of chips, though the cashier gave her a strange look when she tried to pay with coins from her pocket. Apparently, the currency from her ship's emergency kit didn't look quite right. She was walking toward the town square when she saw them. 2 men in dark suits standing by a black car, showing something to old Mr. Peterson who ran the hardware store. Luna's blood turned to ice when she realized what they were showing him. It was a picture of her. Not a picture of her human disguise, but her real form, silver skin, crystalline hair, eyes that glowed like stars. Somehow, they found her, Luna's. First instinct was to run, but her legs felt like jelly. The water bottle slipped from her hands and rolled across the sidewalk. She could hear the men talking to Mr. Peterson, their voices getting closer. Have you seen this individual? She's extremely dangerous. If you spot her, don't approach. Call this number immediately. Dangerous, that's what they always called her. Not refugee, not survivor, not someone who lost everything, just dangerous. Luna tried to back away, but bumped into someone behind her. She spun around, expecting to see another agent, but instead found herself looking up at Jake. He was carrying a bag of supplies from the hardware store, and his face lit up when he saw her. Luna, how's your first solo trip to town going? Luna opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. Over Jake's shoulder, she could see one of the agents turning in their direction. In about 10 seconds, he was going to see her face. In about 15 seconds, he was going to recognize her. She had 2 choices. She could run, which would definitely blow her cover and probably get Jake in trouble. Or she could trust him with her life. Without thinking, Luna made the most un-Luna-like decision of her entire existence. She launched herself at Jake like a scared animal, wrapping her arms around his neck and her legs around his waist. She clung to his back so tightly that he staggered under the sudden weight, his bag of supplies scattering across the sidewalk. Luna, what are you, please? She whispered directly into his ear, her voice carrying harmonics that made his bones vibrate. Please don't let them see me. Please don't let them take me. Jake felt her trembling against him, felt the inhuman strength in her grip. Her fingers were digging into his shoulders hard enough to leave bruises, and her legs were wrapped around his waist like steel bands. She was holding on like her life depended on it. Who? Jake asked quietly, but Luna just pressed her face against his neck and held on tighter. That's when Jake noticed the men in suits walking their way. They looked like government agents, but something about them felt wrong. They moved too smoothly, too quietly. And when one of them looked at Jake, his eyes were completely emotionless. Excuse me, the agent said, stopping in front of them. Have you seen anything unusual in the area? Any strange lights, unusual weather patterns, or individuals who seem out of place? Jake felt Luna's grip tighten even more. She was pressed so close to him that he could feel her heart hammering against his back. She was terrified, and Jake had never seen her scared of anything. No, Jake said, trying to sound casual. Nothing unusual. Just another quiet day in Pine Ridge. The agent's eyes narrowed slightly. What about your friend there? She seems distressed. Luna had gone completely still, like a rabbit trying to hide from a predator. Jake could feel her holding her breath. She's fine, Jake said. Just not a fan of crowds. We were just heading home. The agent stared at them for a long moment, and Jake felt like he was being x-rayed. Finally, the man nodded and handed Jake a business card. If you see anything unusual, call this number immediately. It's a matter of national security. Jake took the card and nodded, but didn't look at it. He was too focused on the girl clinging to his back like her life depended on it. The same girl who'd shouted at him 3 days ago that she didn't need anyone's protection. As soon as the agents were gone, Luna whispered, "Can we go home now?" Jake nodded and started walking, Luna still clinging to his back. People stared as they passed. But Jake didn't care. The fierce, independent girl who declared she could handle anything was holding onto him like a frightened child, and something about that broke his heart. "I'm sorry," Luna whispered as they reached the edge of town. "I'm so sorry. I said I didn't need protection, and then It's okay," Jake said softly. "Sometimes we all need someone to hold onto." Luna didn't let go until they were safely inside the cabin. When she finally climbed down from his back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I lied," she said. "I do need protection. I need it so much it scares me." Jake pulled her into a gentle hug, and this time, she didn't pull away. "Then let me protect you," he said. "Not because you can't protect yourself, but because you shouldn't have to do it alone." Outside, the black SUVs were still searching. But inside the cabin, Luna was learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you need help. That night, Luna couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring out at the stars like she was looking for something specific. Jake brought her a cup of hot chocolate, but she just held it without drinking. "They're not going to give up," she said quietly. "Those men in suits, they've been hunting me for 3 years." Jake sat down beside her. "Who are they?" Luna was quiet for so long that Jake thought she might not answer. Then she took a deep breath and started talking. "My real name isn't Luna," she said. "It's Zara, Princess Zara of Lumina." Jake blinked. "Princess, my planet was beautiful," Zara continued, her voice distant. "We had cities made of crystal that sang in the wind, rivers that flowed upward into the sky, trees that grew stars instead of fruit." She paused, and Jake could see tears forming in her eyes. "Then they came, the corporation. They said they wanted to trade with us, to be our friends. But what they really wanted was our planet's core. It was made of something called quantum crystal, worth more than all the gold in your galaxy." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What happened?" "They offered to buy mining rights when my parents refused. They said they'd take it anyway. They had ships, weapons, technology we'd never seen before. My father tried to negotiate, but they weren't interested in talking." Zara set down her cup and pressed her face against the window. "They destroyed everything, every city, every forest, every living thing. My parents made me promise to run, to survive, to keep our people's memory alive." "How did you escape?" "I had help," Zara said. "A few loyal guards got me to an escape pod, but the corporation ships followed me. I've been running ever since. 3 years. 5 different planets, and they never stopped coming." Jake reached out and touched her hand. Why are you so important to them?" Zara turned to look at him, and her eyes were glowing again. "Because I'm the last of my bloodline. My DNA contains the genetic codes of my entire species. With it, they could clone my people, make them slaves, use them to mine quantum crystal on other worlds." The weight of what she was saying hit Jake like a truck. "You're the last of your entire species, as far as I know. Yes, everyone else is gone." Jake sat back, trying to process this information. The girl he'd been sharing breakfast with, the girl who couldn't figure out how to use a toaster, was the last survivor of an entire civilization? "Those men today," Jake said. "They work for this corporation." Zara nodded. "They call themselves acquisition specialists. They track down valuable resources across the galaxy. I'm just another resource to them. But you're safe here. Earth is protected, right? We have governments, militaries." Zara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jake, these people destroyed an entire planet. Your governments don't even know they exist. And some of your leaders," she shook her head, "some of them are already working with the corporation." Before Jake could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from his supervisor. Strange readings on the mountain. Check it out tomorrow. Zara went rigid. They're scanning for me. My ship must be sending out signals as it repairs itself. Your ship is repairing itself. It's been slowly fixing itself using Earth's magnetic field. But the process creates energy signatures that their scanners can detect. Jake stood up. Then we need to get you out of here. Where can I go that they won't find me? There's a cave system up on Rocky Peak. I know it better than anyone. We can hide there until what? Zara asked. Until they give up. They won't give up, Jake. They'll keep hunting me until they catch me or until I die. Jake was about to answer when his phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. It's dispatch. They never call this late. He answered the phone. Hello, Jake. This is Captain Morrison. We've got a situation. Some federal agents are asking questions about you. They say you might have information about a terrorist threat. Jake's blood ran cold. What kind of questions? They want to know where you've been the last few days, who you've been with, whether you've seen anything unusual. Jake, what's going on? Jake looked at Zara, who was watching him with those impossible eyes. I don't know what they're talking about. Well, they're heading to your cabin right now. They'll be there in about 20 minutes. Jake hung up and turned to Zara. We need to go. Now. They grabbed what they could carry and headed out the back door. Jake's truck was parked behind the cabin, hidden from the road, as they drove toward the mountains. Jake kept checking his mirrors for headlights. There, Zara said, pointing to a spot on the horizon. 3 ships, coming in fast. Jake looked where she was pointing but didn't see anything. I don't see. They're cloaked. Your eyes can't detect them, but I can sense their energy signatures. Jake pressed harder on the gas pedal. The road up to Rocky Peak was narrow and winding, but he knew every turn. Behind them, he could see lights appearing in the distance. They're not just tracking me, Zara said suddenly. They're tracking you to now. Your phone, your truck, anything electronic. Jake pulled over and turned off the engine. Then we go on foot from here. They grabbed their supplies and started hiking up the mountain. The cave system was still 2 miles away, but Jake knew shortcuts that weren't on any map. As they climbed, Zara started changing. Her human disguise was slipping, revealing glimpses of her true form. Her skin began to glow softly, and her hair caught moonlight like it was made of silver thread. I can't hold the disguise much longer, she said. Using my abilities to sense their ships is draining my energy. Then don't, Jake said. Be yourself. Zara looked at him in surprise. You're not afraid of what I really look like. I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of seeing the real you. They reached the cave entrance just as the first search helicopter appeared over the ridge. Jake led Zara deep into the cave system, following passages he'd explored as a kid. How far back do these caves go? Zara asked. Miles. There are chambers down here that nobody's ever mapped. They found a large cavern about half a mile underground. Jake set up a small camp while Zara checked their surroundings. In the darkness, her true form was fully visible. She was taller than her human disguise, with skin that seemed to be made of starlight and eyes that glowed like tiny suns. You're beautiful, Jake said, and meant it. Zara smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. My people believe that beauty came from the light inside us. The more you loved, the brighter you glowed. Then you must have loved your family very much. I did. And I love. She stopped, looking at Jake with an expression he couldn't read. I love the life I'm trying to build here. With you. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. I love it too. Above them, they could hear the sound of aircraft circling. The hunt was getting closer, but for the first time since this all started, Jake felt like they might actually have a chance. Tomorrow, Zara said, I'll show you my ship. If it's repaired enough, we might be able to send a message to other survivors. Maybe I'm not as alone as I thought. Jake nodded. But he was thinking about something else. If there were other survivors, if Zara found her people again, would she still want to stay on Earth? Would she still want to stay with him? Those were questions for tomorrow. Tonight, they were safe, they were together, and that was enough. Dawn was breaking over the mountains when Zara led Jake deeper into the cave system. They'd been walking for an hour through passages that seemed to glow with a strange, soft light. Jake realized the light was coming from Zara herself. Her true form was like a living star, beautiful and otherworldly. "There," she said, pointing ahead. "My ship." Jake's jaw dropped. Nestled in a massive underground cavern was something that looked like it had been grown, rather than built. The ship was smooth and organic, with curves that reminded Jake of seashells and flower petals. It pulsed with the same soft light as Zara's skin. "It's been healing itself," Zara explained, running her hand along the ship's surface, using minerals from the cave walls and energy from Earth's magnetic field. "It's almost ready to fly again." Jake felt his heart sink. "You're leaving?" Zara turned to look at him. "I could. The ship has enough power now to reach the outer rim of the galaxy. There are rumors of other Lumina survivors hiding on distant worlds. But," Jake could hear something in her voice, "but I've been running for 3 years. Jake, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of being afraid. And I'm tired of being alone." She walked over to a panel on the ship's side and pressed her hand against it. The panel lit up, showing what looked like a star map with dozens of blinking lights. "These are corporation ships," she said. "They surrounded the planet. No matter where I run now, they'll find me." Jake studied the map. "How many ships?" 57. Plus ground teams on every continent. They're not taking any chances this time." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "They destroyed your world, killed your family, and now they won't even let you live in peace. They see me as property, Jake, something to be collected and used. They'll never stop hunting me." "Then we don't run," Jake said suddenly. Zara looked at him in surprise. "What? We don't run. We fight back." "Jake, you don't understand. These aren't human soldiers. They have weapons that can destroy mountains, ships that can level cities. What can we possibly do against them?" Jake walked over to the star map and studied it carefully. "You said your ship is almost ready to fly, right?" "Yes, but..." "And it has some kind of communication system?" "Of course. It's how I've been tracking corporation movements." "But Jake, even if we could send a message, who will we send it to?" Jake smiled. "Everyone." It took Zara a moment to understand what he meant. "You want to expose them? Think about it. Right now, they operate in secret. Earth's governments don't know they exist. But what if the whole world knew? What if everyone could see what they really are?" Zara's eyes began to glow brighter. "The ship's communication array could tap into Earth's satellite networks. We could broadcast to every television, every computer, every phone on the planet. And you could show them what happened to your world. Show them what the corporation really does." For the first time since Jake had met her, Zara looked hopeful. "It might work if enough people knew the truth, if your governments united against them. They couldn't hide anymore," Jake finished. "They'd have to leave or face the entire planet." Zara moved to another panel and began working with controls that looked like liquid light. "It'll take about an hour to prepare the broadcast. But Jake, once we do this, there's no going back. They'll know exactly where we are." "How long before they reach us?" 20 minutes after we start broadcasting." Jake nodded. "Then we better make it count." While Zara prepared the ship's communication system, Jake used his ranger knowledge to set up defenses around the cave entrance. He knew these mountains better than anyone, and if the corporation wanted to reach them, they'd have to come through passages that Jake could control. "Ready," Zara called out. Jake joined her at the ship's control panel. The star map now showed Earth in the center, surrounded by lines of communication reaching out to every corner of the planet. "Once I start this," Zara said, "everyone on Earth will see the truth. They'll see what I really am, what my people were, and what the corporation did to us. Are you ready for that? For the whole world to know?" Zara looked at Jake, and he could see the fear in her glowing eyes. But he could see determination too. "I've been hiding for 3 years," she said. "I'm tired of hiding." She pressed her hand to the panel, and the ship hummed to life all around. The world, televisions, and computer screens began showing images that no human had ever seen before. The crystal cities of Lumina, the singing forests, the rivers that flowed upward into star-filled skies. Then came the darker images. Corporation ships appearing in luminous sky, cities crumbling under weapon fire, A beautiful world dying in flames. And finally, Zara herself, standing in the cave with tears streaming down her luminous face. "My name is Princess Zara of Lumina," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of Earth. "I am the last survivor of my people. For 3 years, I have been hunted by the Galactic Mining Corporation. They destroyed my world for its resources, and now they want to use my DNA to create slaves." The broadcast showed the corporation ships surrounding Earth, the same ships that had destroyed Lumina. "They are here," Zara continued. "Right now, they are orbiting your planet, deciding whether Earth is worth more as a source of slaves or raw materials. They believe your governments are too weak to stop them. They believe your people are too divided to unite against them." She looked directly into the camera. "Prove them wrong." The broadcast ended, and suddenly every phone on Earth was ringing. Emergency sessions were called in every capital. Military leaders who had never spoken to each other were suddenly working together. The corporation had counted on secrecy, but their greatest weapon had just been taken away. 15 minutes later, Jake heard the sound of approaching aircraft, but something was different. These weren't corporation ships. These were human aircraft. Fighter jets from a dozen different countries, all converging on the mountains. The corporation ships began retreating as Earth's military forces united. "For the first time in history, it's working," Zara whispered, watching the star map as corporation ships pulled back from Earth's atmosphere. But Jake was watching something else. 3 black aircraft were heading straight for their cave, and these definitely weren't human. "Zara, we need to go now." They ran for the cave entrance, but they weren't fast enough. 3 figures in black armor stepped out of the shadows, weapons raised. "Princess Zara," one of them said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "You will come with us." "No," Zara said, and her whole body began to glow like a small sun. "I will not run anymore. I will not hide anymore. And I will not be your prisoner." The lead figure raised his weapon, but Jake stepped between them. "You want her," Jake said. "You go through me first." The figure laughed. "One human against corporation technology?" "Not one human," said a new voice. Jake turned to see Dr. Mitchell, the town doctor, emerging from another cave passage. Behind her were Captain Morrison, Mr. Peterson from the hardware store, and dozens of other people from Pine Ridge. "The whole town," Dr. Mitchell said, raising what looked like one of Jake's old hunting rifles. "We saw the broadcast. We know what you did to her people, and we're not going to let you take her." More voices echoed through the cave as people from other towns arrived. Then came the sound of helicopters overhead. Human helicopters. The corporation soldiers looked around, realizing they were outnumbered by hundreds of humans who were no longer afraid. "This is not over," the lead soldier said, but he was already backing toward his ship. "Yes, it is." Zara said, "Your secret is out. The whole galaxy will know what you really are, and Earth will be watching." The corporation soldiers retreated, but Zara knew they'd be back someday. Maybe not for years, maybe not for decades, but they'd be back. "What will you do now?" Jake asked as the crowd dispersed. Zara looked at her ship, then at Jake, then at the people of Pine Ridge who had risked their lives to protect her. "I think," she said, "I'd like to stay. Earth could use someone who knows about the corporation, and I could use a home. What about finding other survivors? They'll find me when they're ready. My broadcast reached beyond Earth. If there are other Lumina out there, they know where I am now." Jake smiled. "So you're staying? If you'll have me. I know I'm not easy to live with. I can't figure out your toaster. I drink orange juice with a fork, and sometimes I glow in the dark." "I think I can handle it," Jake said, pulling her into his arms. 6 months later, the Lumina Sanctuary was established in the mountains outside Pine Ridge. Zara worked with Earth's governments to prepare for the corporation's eventual return, while other alien refugees began arriving, drawn by her message of hope. And in a small cabin overlooking the valley, a park ranger and a princess learned that sometimes the best way to protect yourself isn't to hide from the world, but to trust it with your truth. Zara never did figure out how to use the toaster, but Jake didn't mind making her breakfast every morning. After all, Some things were more important than independence. Some things were worth clinging to.